Thank you, Shlomo. Now I can also add a question. Sharon was asking you what's your idea, and you were answering regarding equilibrium, and maybe we should kind of manage among the models. And I'd like to add a question that maybe later on we can discuss, is that whether teacher education is really a continuum. I mean, we start with educating the pre-service teacher, but then we go on into the in-service professional development, and whether different stages within the development of a teacher should or can have a different emphasis regarding the models that you were suggesting. Now what we are going to do is invite two persons. We'll start with Dr. Ilana Elkad-Lehman from Levinsky College, and then we'll follow her with Nir Michaeli from the Kibbutzim, and you will be referring to Shlomo's ideas. Where is Ilana? Please. So Dr. Ilana Elkad-Lehman from Levinsky College in Tel Aviv.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, I'm not a philosopher. There is no chance that I will follow Shlomo's way of thinking, and I think that since he invited me to participate in this symposium, and since he knows me very well, he was my boss at Levinsky College of Education when I was in the beginning of my career as in teacher education. So actually what I do is literature teaching and teacher education regarding thinking development in teacher education. So you will see that what we will be doing is mainly, I think, it will be stories. In his book, the very comprehensive book, I must say, Shlomo introduces the many phases of teacher education. The great variety and the lack of consensus about almost everything that regards teacher education. In this session, I will look at the issue from my own perspective. It may be a kind of case study, the case study of the MTeach program that I am the head of. And I will use narratives, my own and my students' narrative, to make my point. When I was a literature student, I think it was the first year I studied literature, my professor, Professor Tzvi, said that something that is a very particular can become very universal because the example can show something that has a truth in itself, and hopefully I will be able to show it through my talk, but it will be not shown as a case study, although I gathered a lot of information by reading documents, writing documents, having questionnaires with my MTeach students and interviews with each of them, and writing reflective journal through all the time that I've been the head of the program. I will be telling mainly stories. In constructing the MTeach program in my college, I had three determining components. One was totally external guidelines. I say totally external because these guidelines regard all institutions in Israel. These are guidelines made by regulators like Ministry of Education in one hand, and the Council of Higher Education on the other hand. And if I will say Mismach Mitvim, Hebrew-speaking people will understand. If I will say מסמך מל"ג לתואר שני, everybody will understand, because it makes the limit how program can be managed and written. The second one was our ideology. And Levinsky College of Education have a clear ideology about, first of all, the main place of practice in teacher education, and then the concept of School of Advanced Studies that is already functioning for several years, I think 10 years already, which put the research of teaching as part of, very central part of teaching and teacher education, and of course advanced technology as part of learning environment in school today. And we have our strengths as college that also were part of the program that I wrote with my colleagues. A very important component when we planned the program was the knowledge who are going to be our students, more or less. Since we had the Asava program for a very long time, we know more or less who are the students who are coming to Asava, and we had in mind that such kind of student will come to study also in MTeach program. I will clarify myself, because it's a program for students who have already achieved first degree, BA degree, or BSc degree at the university or in a college in Israel or somewhere in the world, and then they are coming to study for second degree in education with certificate of education together. Of course, there were also faculty-related consideration and a lot of constraints that you can see here. Our 2-year experience had taught us that students' identity is a major component in dictating the way the students and faculty realize the principles of the program. Saying we can plan one thing and what's happening is not exactly what we've planned, for better or worse. I will present the gap I see between the planning of a training program and the student perceptions of this training. And I will do it through using the narrative approach, the stories of my students, and a little bit of mine. 2 months ago, we took this picture. These are some of my students, not all the group of the students that graduate this year. I think that you can see something that is very interesting. First of all, they are not children anymore. The average age of our student is 30, but we have students that are in the 50s also. There are students that have no teaching experience at all, that are studying together with veteran teachers who have no teaching certificate and came to the college to obtain this teaching certificate. Most of the students are parents. Yes, you saw the pregnant student, and it's her second child, and we have mothers of 5 children and 2 singles mothers in the program, and most of them work meanwhile the time they study in the program. Not all of them live near Tel Aviv. Some of them have to do all the way for studying. I think these small details help us understand something about the group of students and problems or challenges they face and we face having them. When we come to look at the students closer, I think we can find 4 main prototypes of students. One is the prototype of having some knowledge of the discipline and no teaching experience. This is very similar to the students that we have in our BEd programs. There are students that have some knowledge in the discipline, which is combined with teaching experience, sometimes 2, 3, 4, or even 20 years of experience in the field. We had cases of excellent knowledge of the discipline and no teaching experience, and excellent knowledge in the discipline with teaching experience, but no teaching certificate, and lack of ability to deal with education. So I will try to show you these 4 prototypes, or at least maybe 3 of them. We'll see how the time helps us. I want to tell you about Hila. Hila is 40 years old. She has 2 children. She has a BA in psychology, and a few years ago, as a young mother, she started to look for a job, and it was very easy to get a job teaching math in elementary school where she lives. She started to teach, and she was in shock that there was no problem to teach math without having any prior knowledge in math except of the matriculation she did years ago. So she decided she is going to study math for teaching. Not math in the university, but math in the college, in a program of hashlamot, what we call, in purpose to become a math teacher. The first reaction of her principal was, okay, Hila, you are not a teacher in our school anymore. If you need the time for being a student, a day or 2 days at Levinsky College of Education, out of question. So Hila said bye-bye to the school with a broken heart because she was sure that she is not going to find another job, but she found a very good school with principal that said, great, you want to become a teacher. It's nice that you want to have 2 days for studying. And she is still teaching there today. She is a math teacher who started the program after having almost all her math done, and she brought her great personality, her great knowledge in psychology, very clear idea of being a teacher and identity of being a teacher, and she knew why she wants to be a teacher and what kind of teacher she is interested to be, and she is. And studying in the group was kind of negotiation with other students about identity of being a student, identity of being a teacher, and having dialogue with other students about what is caring, what is being a teacher, what is being a good math teacher. And I had been in classes she gave in school and in kind of conversation they had in class in the college that showed that she was a very central person in the program. Another example, Tami. She is now, I think, almost 50. She had a BA in literature, but unusual and extraordinary career. She taught art, she curated exhibitions in galleries. She was involved in community projects with underprivileged children and underprivileged women about writing the life stories and writing all kind of ethnographic stories. And actually, she did a fantastic job, but since she had no teaching certificate, she couldn't get a job in formal schooling because there are a lot of literature teachers. And she felt that she will be underpaid if she will not have a certificate of teaching. So she came to the program to study, and she was one of the people who said all the time, I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly why I want to do it. I want your help to show me more about it, to let me learn about it, to let me research my work, And I want to write down what I am doing, and the same story about writing down is the story of Hadi, who is a gifted musician. For more than 30 years, I think she started to teach music when she was a teenager. And she's an excellent teacher of music without having any teaching certificate. And now she's sitting and writing her, first of all, her life story. And second, she tries to to write down the way she understands it's the best way to teach young children playing a flute. Aaron, on the contrary, is totally different. He has a PhD in music. He came to the program having no experience at all in teaching, knowing that he is a little bit clumsy and maybe not functioning well in school. And actually what he had during his study was negotiating with all the students about what teaching is, what can be his own identity as a teacher, how he can manage as a teacher. He started to teach at the university last semester. So actually he's doing an action research on his teaching last semester at the university, and our group around was kind of brainstorming group for thinking how to do it, what can he do better that can improve his teaching and make it successful. I will not be telling you about Nina, but I want to bring students' statements. They were very happy with the study group they had. They felt that it's a privilege to study with such a gifted group of students, but they said again and again that the group as a power for learning and studying is not fully utilized. They say to me in several occasions, let us lead. We have something to say. Take advantage of our knowledge. And another student told me last semester, the Jewish identity lesson is the most significant part of the program. I should have taken it in the first semester. They can choose when. Of course, such statements are a great challenge to the faculty. How do we do that change? There were, of course, changes in the syllabi. Some of the teachers constructed lessons based on the students' knowledge, on the students' personality, about students' contribution to the class, about students' needs. They changed modes of assessment. On the one hand, students actually asked us to rewrite the program, and some of the teachers really did it. On the other hand, some of the teachers were more formal and wanted to preserve the planned syllabus, or maybe couldn't change the syllabus. Change is not a function of the program contents, but is the faculty perceptions of teaching, faculty perceptions of abilities, flexibility, and the process of creation, a community of practice in between us that may bring about the change. If I look at our program, I think I can describe it to this diagram. Levinsky is kind of context that enable them to learn. There is a program, there are students, and there is faculty. All of them create dynamic program that is in being and in creation constantly. It's ongoing creation throughout dialogue with our students, who are also undergoing change by themselves. Their identities are negotiated all the time to dialogue with the faculty and to dialogue in between themselves. From this experience, I can sum the teacher education program take place in a social, in a political, in a cultural context. Student identities design the program, and at the same time, the program helps them to negotiate their own identities. Thank you. Toda.
Good evening. So I won't use PowerPoint. I thought that by this stage of the evening, we'll be all tired from presentations. So, and I think Shlomo invited me here because he wanted someone to represent the social paradigm point of view, and I will try to do it. And as Shlomo taught us a few minutes ago, we should start with meta theory, so I'll start there. So, education scholars and practitioners are troubled by a very substantial question: how to educate youngsters towards an unknown future. And another question that is combined with it is what kind of teachers are needed in order to promote this kind of unknown education, and how they should be educated, trained, prepared. There are a few ways to answer those questions. I think most of the answers can be sorted into two families. The first family is a family that can be called functional futurism. In this family, they are trying to predict the skills and the knowledge that will be needed in the next generation, trying to understand what the world will look like one generation or two generations ahead. The second family can be called cultural conservatism. In this family, they are trying to protect youngsters from dangerous influences or trends. Those two families are problematic. They both assume we can't influence the future. We as citizens, as human beings, can't shape it. Therefore, we just have to prepare ourselves for it. Education by those two attitudes has to accept any social, cultural, moral evolution and to train children to get along. And if I may quote Hanoch Levin, despondency, we should make despondency more convenient. The functional futurism thinks we have the ability to predict the future. I think we should lean on Zygmunt Bauman. Shlomo quotes him in his book that he's saying this can't be done. The cultural conservatism assumes changes can be blocked, but we all know that cultural walls or barriers eventually will arouse resistance. Instead of those two concepts, I want to suggest an alternative third approach that I will call it utopian futurism. Using utopia here in the meaning of realistic utopia. I'm not using the Marxist concept of utopia. Meaning believe in the ability to shape the future, in the power of citizens to change natural trends, and believe in the obligation of any human being to be involved in creating a more just and fair society. Education has a great and important role in growing such involved activist citizenship conscious. Teacher training is central in creating teachers and educators with such utopist orientation. Antonio Gramsci spoke of the need for organic intellectuals. According to him, organic intellectuals are people who are not detached from the very thin fabric of public life, but are actively involved in strengthening the dimensions of knowledge within it. Gramsci's idea of the organic intellectual educator is reinforced by essential elements underlying the critical pedagogic perception. The leading critical pedagogy thinkers, such as Paulo Freire, Michael Appel, Henry Giraud, Peter McLaren, and others, view the formal education system as a political forum which plays a leading role in shaping a public consciousness. They want to foster students so that they can decipher the language of hegemony, and by critically reading reality, identify the factors and forces affecting their lives. Thus, teacher training should engage in all three dimensions: the epistemological dimension, which provides students with humanistic education and critical reflection; the political dimension, aiming to create space for shaping a democratic culture; and the ethical dimension, which nurtures an attitude of caring. In order to empower the critical literacy of teacher training and reinforce the basis of cultivating a democratic culture, experiential locals and learning patterns must be created that will equip teachers trainees with the tools required for advancing socio-political education. So now I will describe the model, how it works. The concept of training teachers as involved intellectual or as social utopian educators is translated into three parallel paths of implementation. The first path is enhanced involvement in the community by forging alliances with municipal councils and NGOs. The practical work is not only in the classroom, but also in the informal schooling system. The second path generated a change in the curricula and teaching methods, allocation of hours for social activity or social involvement. The third path coped with changing the organizational culture of the college and introduced a structured involvement of both teacher trainees and lecturers in the academic life of the college by means of special committees. Because I have a limited time, I'll just say a few words about the second path, about the social involvement. Each student in our college is obliged to participate in a unique social involvement course that includes 60 hours of social activity experience, plus academic course dealing with the concrete experience concept and theoretical context. For example, students that are taking a course dealing with working immigrants and refugees are sent to work in a social organization dealing with children, with immigrant children, or work organizations that are fighting for workers' rights. The course and the activity is mandatory, is not a volunteering activity, and we have each year we have a debate with our students, and we insist that we are not charging them to volunteer, but this is part of their studies. Just the same way they are experiencing teaching during their studies, and they are not expecting to receive any money for this. On the same time, they should experience the backyard of the Israel society. A training model seeking to nurture teachers as intellectual involved in society and the community focuses the process on an attempt to empower the novice teacher with intellectual self-confidence, reinforce their sense of self-esteem in their ability to lead change, and nurture pedagogic, didactic, dialogical skills. The training model presented above blurs the borderline between formal and non-formal education and takes the students out of the classroom to bring them into contact with the community and society and to introduce democratic conduct into the academic life of the college. This model constitutes an alternative to the accepted learning tracks at teacher training institutions. Unlike conventional teacher training, the model presented here seeks to equip teachers with a critical approach to reality and to prepare them to act in it as pedagogic activists. Unlike conventional teacher training, this training model views the students as partners in the structuring of teaching and learning, in designing the curriculum, and in shaping campus academic life. Unlike conventional teacher training, the new training model seeks to expand the pool of experiences and viewpoints to additional circles of community and society. This experience encourages the students' active participation, reinforces the sense of self-esteem in their ability to lead change, and provides them with a broader political consciousness. And I will just conclude with an Oscar Wilde quote: "A map of the world that does not include utopia is not worth even glancing at, for it leaves out the one country at which humanity is always landing. And when humanity lands there, it looks out and seeing a better country, set sail. Progress is the realization of utopias." Hope that the educational model illustrated here is part of this progress. Thank you.
Nir, thank you so much for reintroducing us to utopia in education. I'm inviting now Professor Sharon Feynman Nemser. She is from Brandeis University in the United States and also is affiliated to Mandel Institution here in Jerusalem. And Sharon will be our discussant, although she did not have the papers before, but you probably saw that while the people were presenting, she was writing her notes. That's the Israeli way.
So first of all, it's been a long day for everyone. Thank you all for coming to this session. I so appreciate that my colleagues speak in English so that I can understand what they're saying. I think it's very, אני מאוד מקווה בעתיד שאפשר לדבר בעברית. This is my goal. And it's worth acknowledging and mentioning because it's such a huge accommodation. So, and it should go the other way. I'm working hard at getting there, but I'm not there yet, and I didn't know what people were going to say, so I need all the help I can mobilize to make a few comments. So thank you. When Shlomo sent me an email and asked me would I be interested in participating in this symposium, which was a long time ago, I thought I saw the title of the book, Ways of Learning to Teach, a philosophically inspired analysis of teacher education, and two phrases really spoke to me. First of all, those of you who know my work know that I've been interested in how people learn to teach and get better at teaching over time for many, many years. That's been the driving question of my research and practical work in teacher education. But you may not know that all through my career, I feel like I'm very interested in practice, but I've always sought philosophers as close colleagues. So my very first job as a teacher educator when I finished my doctorate was at the University of Chicago, where I was in charge of developing a new teacher education program, and I very quickly hired a philosopher, Sophie Haratunian, who has gone on to do wonderful work and has written 2 fabulous books on learning to teach interpretive discussions. But she indeed was my first philosopher colleague. And then when I went to Michigan State, I worked very closely with Margaret Buchman, who's a philosopher, and Bob Floden, both of them trained as philosophers at Stanford. And now that I'm at Brandeis, my close colleague is John Levinson, also from Stanford, a philosopher. So the chance to learn from another philosopher who cares deeply about teacher education, not a very common combination, was also very intriguing to me. So those were some of the pulls that drew me to, you always say yes when it's 6 months away, because you think you'll have plenty of time to read the book and write your comments and be ready. So, but it was a very attractive invitation, and I'm very glad that I said yes to that invitation. And I also remember my visit to Kay. I come to Israel as often as I can. My sister lived outside of Beersheba for 40 years, so I spent a lot of time in the south and in Beersheba, and visiting Kay was a highlight of one of my trips there as well. So what to say about this book and this interesting eclectic symposium? This is an amazing compendium of many powerful ideas that have been offered as ways to make sense of teacher education programs. I mean, that's sort of a summary. I think your clear summary of the book in a handful of slides is really a marvelous sort of advanced organizer for people who are intending to read the book. And I would love to have had that at the beginning as well, because it sort of gives you kind of the big picture of the book. I have contributed to some of the conceptual frameworks that are reviewed here. Many years ago, I was invited to write a chapter for the first handbook of research on teacher education. The chapter is called Structural and Conceptual Alternatives in Teacher Education. And I was struck at the time that everybody was arguing about whether programs should be 4 years or 5 years or undergraduate or graduate, and all of these different structural possibilities didn't seem to provide a lot of illumination about the purposes of teacher education and its desired impact. So I tried to summarize what at the time were a set of conceptual lenses for thinking about different programs. But this is just one of many other frameworks that Shlomo reviews and lays out. What was striking to me is your claim that every teacher education program has an identity. So I'm thinking about what that means, and I'm inviting all of you to think about how would you characterize the identity of your teacher education program, and which of these frameworks or categories or labels help you communicate what is important about the program. How is it helpful to you to think about whether your program fits within the Enlightenment ideology, within a romantic ideology, within an externally inspired ideology? That's a question, because Shlomo is offering these categories. I think Kurt Lewin said there's nothing as practical as a good theory. I think that in a way it's an empirical question now. We have a map, we have a conceptual map, and all of us can participate in thinking about, reflecting, examining our own programs, and trying out these different ideas for the light that they illuminate. Because as we know, theories are partial. That's the role of a theory, to highlight some aspects of a complex situation and to leave other aspects of that phenomenon in the dark. So we have a very theoretical book with a lot of different frameworks, and now we have an opportunity to test their illumination, their power to illuminate our practice, by thinking about how these different sets of ideas shed light on different aspects of what we do. So in a way, we have a little test of that today, because we heard about two programs. Ilana and Nir described two very different programs, and I invite you to think about. You started the question by saying, is Ilana's program does it help us understand the program that Ilana described by thinking of its belonging within a romantic tradition? And where would we put Nir's program using any of these sets of ideas, and how does that help us think more deeply about the program? So I leave that with you as kind of an empirical exercise of the usefulness of a wide variety of frameworks, and in particular the one that Shlomo shared with us. And you also, Shlomo said today, so I'm now thinking about that as well, that what we need is an equilibrium among the three formulations. So I don't know whether equilibrium is the metaphor, the right metaphor. I'm thinking a lot about my teacher, Joseph Schwab, from the University of Chicago many years ago, and the idea of the practical and the need for an eclectic set of theories to illuminate different aspects of the commonplaces that come together in any program. You talked a lot about the students and the milieu. Alana really highlighted for us two of the four commonplaces that Schwab calls the commonplaces of education: teachers and teaching, learners and learning, subject matter and milieu. So we heard about students. We heard about the external policy context that places certain constraints and maybe even opportunities onto the program. We didn't hear that much about, we heard a little bit about the faculty, and particularly we heard that for some it was challenging to be responsive to their students, where others were able to be more accommodating. And we got some tempting tidbits about the actual curriculum. What I wanted to know a lot more about was, I think you conveyed powerfully how much the students in your program are a real resource for each other, that they bring to the program a lot of rich experience and areas of expertise that make them resources for each other. And it would be interesting to know more about how the professional learning community evolves and functions as a group of learners. And I still want to know more about what is the value added from the program, besides enabling people who are more mature to earn the certificate they need to get the job that they want. I want to hear more about the curriculum of the program. And then, I'm interested in how you would use the conceptual frameworks to shed light on that program. I was very inspired by hearing about Nir's program. I love the idea. I think of teachers as practical intellectuals, a little bit like Gramsci's notion. I think if educators aren't utopian, then, in some ways it seems like an occupational either hazard or possibility, that you almost have to be utopian if you're going to be an educator, because you have to really believe in the capacity of all people to learn and grow and to make something of themselves and their society, and that your responsibility is to help enable them to mobilize the resources and expand their capacities in order to take that on. So I think we all share a utopian outlook, and I think that's part of what enables us to do what we do. I was very interested in hearing more about the ways in which this program, I think, breaks out of the, I can't remember whose phrase it is. I don't know whether it's Larry Kremen, the grammar of schooling. This is the way in which we are very rooted in, and in some ways stuck in, the way that schools are organized. And it's very hard to think outside of one teacher, 30 kids, batch processing of children. I think we're also a little bit rooted in the grammar of higher education, and it's very hard to think outside of the containers of courses and credits and field experiences, and packaging teacher education programs around the kind of units that make up programs in higher education. That's one of our constraining environments as well. So I think we started to hear about examples of teacher educators who are enacting the values and ideas of the program and giving students an opportunity to themselves experience firsthand the kind of empowered learning, the kinds of democratic processes, the forms of social responsibility that they in turn will induct their pupils into. And it's certainly not a new idea in teacher education that we need to model and enact the ways of teaching and learning that we hope our students will also practice as one of the vehicles for both educating them and building coherence in our program. But I think we had some very inspiring examples of new settings for teacher learning and new modes of teacher learning that help make vital and concrete the philosophical or conceptual underpinnings of this democratically oriented teacher education program. So as I was listening to the two cases, I was thinking, and I didn't have at my fingertips the wide range of frameworks that are offered here. I just had the three that you helped us understand in your opening presentation, Shlomo. So we talk a lot about the relationship of theory and practice in teacher education, and about, and I believe in the power of ideas to help people shape a principled practice, but I still think it is a challenge for us to find a conceptual and philosophical discourse in teacher education that illuminates practice in ways that will be helpful to us and help us move our practice forward. So I think what Shlomo offers us is this rich resource which allows us to kind of search for ideas and think about the ways in which they can help us think more deeply about our practice. I said to Shlomo that I was really looking for him in this book also. You know, we have lots of other people, ways that lots of other people have conceptualized the work of teacher education. And he told us that he's now writing another book that will have more of Shlomo in it. But there is a little bit of Shlomo here, and I'll just end my comments by sharing that with you. Okay, on the very last page of the book, Shlomo says, after giving credit to many, many other people's ideas, the children of the future will need a responsible adult on whom they can rely. He said, everything I can think of might be old-fashioned a day after the publication of the book. However, one point seems to me to be of vital importance. And then he says, the children of the future will need a responsible adult on whom they can rely. They need someone with enough integrity and concern who cares about their proper development and will see that they have a kind of compass to help them navigate in the world. Functioning as a teacher in the technical sense will not be enough. The teacher of tomorrow should not instruct but educate. For this to happen, any type of teacher education program should emphasize the being. Some kind of being process is a prerequisite to meet the future's needs. So this is the one place in the book, I think, where Shlomo blows his cover and gives us an insight into his own formulation and ideology. And you know, I think in learning to teach, one is learning to know and think and feel and act like a teacher. It's all of those aspects of a person need to come together somehow into a principled practice, and you've helped to anchor the kind of teacher that we should be helping to prepare, and I think those final comments in your own book. So I'm looking forward to book 2, and thank you. We can now have a conversation about some of these ideas.
Okay.
שקיבלו אותו.
בסדר, נטפל בזה.
Now it's the time for the open discussion. We'll take questions, notes, comments, whatever. You all want to go home?
I want to ask about the philosophy idea. My name is Bracha, I'm a postdoc and I'm a literature teacher. I wonder about you didn't mention the postmodernist and the deconstruction of the idea of the philosophy. And I think you can feel it a lot in the literature and also in the way of the life, and even when I teach or when I see my students. So I would like to hear what you have to say about it. Thank you.
I think that we'll answer each question.
Okay. In 10 minutes of presentation, it's very difficult to address all the issues, but I do address the postmodern and the deconstructionist somehow. Basically, I adopt Taylor's argument that education cannot be based on postmodernism ideas because there is no basis for any moral source. But it's a long argument and you have to justify it and you have to show examples. The main point is that in any world, even in the postmodern world, you need some anchor to put yourself with relating, even to negate it, but you have some sort of anchor. You need some sort of anchor, because otherwise the teaching will be like a flux, which with no point of stability. Now, not that wandering here and there is something bad, I'm for it, but you still need some sort of criteria, some sort of vision in order to educate others. It's not only yourself that you are going along the beaches. It's somebody else that you have the responsibility to educate him and to do something with him. So that's part of the question, and the other is a chapter in the book.
Which means that we just have to read the book. Any other questions? Will you be able to help me?
Professor Bach, I'll try in English. So help me God. You spoke about the importance of the equilibrium between the different assumptions. Tzvi Lam wrote a lot about the problems of mixing some assumptions, and I really want to know how can we promise that the differences between the assumptions won't make a big mess of our programs, and how can we create a real good combination between all these assumptions.
Thank you, because it's a very good question which can help me and clarify one thing. All those kind of, classifications are artificial. Life is not that way. Life is much more chaotic, much more kind of not structured, not strict, and so on. So if you want to do something very strict and very, very in lines, you kill the phenomenon. So this is one thing is to have a map. Another thing is to wisely imply or use the map. And the map doesn't say that you have pure ideal, pure things. Everything's always involved, and it's always a question of balance, always a question of proportion. There is no one pure program. In each program you find all the two. There's not one pure. It's all question of balancing, of what you emphasize, what you focus, and the focus can shift from one day to another, or from class to another class, or from students to other students. It depends. Now, this is the point of equilibrium. Equilibrium doesn't mean that you have equal parts just pour inside one set of this, one set of this, and one set of this. For Aristotle, where the notion of equilibrium is taken from, is to do the right thing in the right place, in the right moment, in the right time. And this is the main idea of equilibrium. To be in the mean, to do what is necessary and what is appropriate in this very moment, to this very place, and to this very class, and this very place, and so on. And I do think that in real life, everything blends together. And therefore, the idea that you can purify something is one of the dangerous ideas I can think of, because purification leads to violence.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Sofer from Gordon College of Education in Oronim, and I'm also leading the Tempest project of Do It, which K College is our team, part of our team members. And I could really connect with Nir's motto of utopias and trying to create in teacher training and involvement in the society and education for democracy. I think many teaching colleges in Israel are very much involved in the society. Our project Do It is aimed to try to promote curriculum reform and multicultural education for teacher training. And we're very exciting to have 6 academic institutions in Israel, 6 in Georgia, and another 7 in Europe following an Israeli initiative. And it's very exciting to sort of hear this model and feel that we're in the path of trying to make change, a better change, and it starts with teachers. Teachers are leaders. Teachers have to be involved in the society that they live in, and I just wanted to appreciate your presentation of the Utopia model. I think it's one that we all have to strive for, involvement in the society and teacher training. The teacher has to be involved. I think our college in Gordon also requires 60 hours of, we call it volunteering, make your students volunteer, but they have to be involved in some sort of social program in the community, because we feel that teachers that aren't involved in the community will not be good teachers. So I just wanted to connect with what you said and tell you that, and I thought it was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Sharon, do you remember what you wanted to say?
I just was thinking more about this question, which I also think is an interesting question of how do you create a defensible eclectic? That's Schwab's term, equilibrium, whatever. And I like this mental exercise. You know, we heard about certain kind of students. What we didn't hear, what we heard mainly from Ilana was, who are the students and what resources are they bringing? What we heard from Nir is a vision of the kind of society we need to create, and therefore the kind of students that we need. It seems to me when we put a whole conversation together, we have to combine some very profound understanding of our students and what they bring that we take seriously into account, some vision of the kind of society that we need to create and the sorts of teachers that have to help realize that society. Some appreciation of the context that we're in that both constrains and enables us, and some deep understanding of how we help people develop the knowledge and understanding and skills and commitments to act in a principled way. And that's actually what I want to talk more about on Thursday, is how to help people develop a practice. We do a lot of teaching about a lot of things, but I think we also have to help people learn to act in the world in a principled way. And this is a complicated curricular deliberation in teacher education, to bring understandings about the commonplaces together and to weave a program that has the sort of learning opportunities that are going to equip teachers with the kind of capacities we need them to have. So I think we have to think about all of those things. I mean, I wouldn't start with let's pick an ideology and make a program. I mean, that wouldn't be my starting point, and I don't think it's Shlomo's either. He's giving us this rich map to draw from, but I think we have to start by thinking about the building blocks that we're coping with and working with in order to imagine a program that will build the future that we all need and deserve and hope for.
Would you like to add something?
State mainly. I'm asked. Okay, so I'll try to ask in a different way. Will your programs make a change with the teacher who have no special background, not artists or just people who came out of the army or social service and want to be teachers, youngsters that came out of school that were taught by the conservative ways. I'm trying to hear about erasing their stereotype teaching that they were, I don't know if it's deep inside of them, how to erase it. That's what my question all the day. How do you erase the formatted disk?
Okay, so of course this is a very basic question, and one of the answers is to make something like de-schooling, you know, that the teaching profession is one of the professions that we are coming to with the most, we are, all of us are very, very experienced, while other professions, when we're going to learn them or to study to be a physician or a lawyer, we actually know very little about those professions. So one of the solutions is to delete everything we know before, but of course this can't be done. So I think that our challenge is to make our programs very powerful. You know, I think sending our students to the Israeli backyard is influencing them very deeply, and I hope that those kind of experiences will build another conception of what it is to be a teacher or what it is to be an educator. Of course, it's not enough, and we should do much more, but this is our aim. Maybe.
I would like to add something to that. What I hear very often is that teachers who are coming for the second degree, for the MED, and think that they are excellent teachers. They think about themselves, say when they graduate the program that they found out that they are not so good and they have to improve. Each of us have kind of mental models rooted very deeply inside. And it's really a lifetime work to change things. It's not that you can erase and delete, and it's hard work. One has to work on himself if he realizes that he's not the kind of teacher he or she wants to be. So I think that we made some progress in our MED programs with students of us. I invite you to come to my session on Thursday at Nofet and hear my students speaking. They will be with me. So I think that it can show something.
Okay, thank you so very much. One last comment. I think that learning to teach is reconstructing over and over again our identity, which also means that it's not deleting something. We come with identities and they are going to be part of our teaching, the construction of our identity as teachers. And I don't want anything to be deleted, as a matter of fact. I want it all to be part of me realizing what is my job as a teacher in the 21st century. So thank you so very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.